I don't think I ever really believed everything.
And I realized that quite a few of the things didn't hold water.
The actual religions were man-made from wherever.
God? Who's God? What's God?
I think that skepticism really is the first step.
Scientific zest and zeal for the real world.
That was it. I was an atheist from then on. Essential tenets of Catholicism that you guys don't really adhere to.
That's
right. Yet you call yourselves Catholic.
Hi, I'm Rad.
Hi, I'm Susan, and this is our friend Michael Dorian, here to tell us how he became on the road to atheism.
How are you? How's everything?
Welcome
Welcome
aboard.
aboard.
Yeah, good to see you guys again. Yeah, hi.
Good.
Hi, Susan.
So, tell us, how's everything with you these days?
Good. I have stories to tell.
Yes.
Okay, great.
So we'll begin at the beginning.
Okay, so we'll go
Your
back
family
to...
was?
Right. I was raised in a very, very loosely Catholic family. The easiest way to describe it in a way is that my father was a sports writer for the New York Daily News. So sports, more than anything, was religion in my household. Right, yeah. And I have I'm one of four brothers, and my two older brothers were 14 and 10 when I was born. Mm-hmm. So by the time my younger brother and I came along, my parents were sort of done with the whole church routine. Right. But still, I went through the Catholic, not Catholic school, but catechism. Religious instructions.
Your neighborhood, your community.
I was born in the Bronx, but grew up in New Rochelle.
And were they mostly Catholic? Irish?
No, mostly.
Italian?
My neighborhood was primarily Jewish and Italian. Yeah,
But Italian, wouldn't that be Catholic also?
Yeah, Italian. Yeah, all the Italians in the neighborhood were Catholic. Yeah.
Of course.
Well, there are a few Italian
But,
Jews.
it was the very close suburbs of New York. I mean, I've never lived more than 20 minutes from Midtown Manhattan. So it was never a religious atmosphere where I grew up.
So your parents never forced you to go to...
No, I mean, like I said, I went through, religious instruction up to being confirmed. But my road to doubt started before that. I mean, I remember being a young kid, probably like 8 years old or so, and watching those commercials on TV for all the starving children in Africa who, needed everyone's help. And I just remember thinking at that point that if there were a God, why wouldn't he help? Do something here.
Yes.
So the seeds of doubt were planted very young, but and then it was never fostered by my family life or anything. No one in my family really cared very much about religion. And then I do remember on the day that I was confirmed at 13, I walked out of St. Pius Church and looked up at the steeple behind me and just said to myself, boy, am I glad that's over. And it essentially was. It really was.
Graduation.
For more than one way.
Yeah. I mean, for the rest of my, young adult life, well up into my 20s, it just wasn't an issue. But, when I turned 17 in 1980, so I saw the whole moral majority, Jerry Falwell's and Pat Buchanan's and Pat Robertson's, just unfold in front of me. And the Reagan years. And I found it all like just kind of a bit absurd. Like I didn't take it very seriously. Like I would poke fun at that whole ideology and the religious right in this country at the time, but it wasn't a real issue.
Until now.
And the Bakers also, remember them with that.
Jim and Tammy Faye, of course. All of that, even
including
Billy Graham before them and everyone through.
That's right.
But no, what really happened, like the biggest turning point for me was definitely 9/11. I mean, that's what made me become a vocal atheist.
Okay, so first it was Darfur, and then it was like that.
Ethiopia. Wherever it was,
right.
wherever those starving kids in Africa were. I'm sure there were numerous countries that had that problem. And then 9/11.
In other words, what I'm getting from what you're saying is that the overall reaching aspect is the fact is that how could God be so...
I struggled with the idea of theodicy long before I knew what the word meant. Right. How can God let bad things
like you
happen
said,
like
yeah.
this. Yeah. But the other thing that definitely colored me as I was coming of age, was seeing all the religious strife that went on, the violence that went on along with it between
name of
Israel and
religion.
Palestine and
Northern
in Northern
Ireland.
Ireland. Sure, was
Yes.
a hotbed through this whole period of my life. And there were always, other pockets of things happening at the Olympics in Munich. There was another terrorist incident even back then. And, these things made a distinct impression on me. And I remember having conversations with my parents at a certain point. We didn't really talk about religion much, but at a certain point, probably when I was in my maybe late teens or early 20s, I would ask them, I was like, why do you guys even still call yourselves Catholic? I said, you have numerous friends who've, you don't care if people have been divorced. You've all had premarital sex and it doesn't matter to you guys. You don't like harp on that. And so if someone you knew needed an abortion, they would not oppose it. I was like, so there are all these things, like these essential tenets of Catholicism that you guys don't really adhere to.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yet you call yourselves Catholic. And it just was, that's more or less where the conversation ended. They were like, yeah, so. And it really was a non-issue, for my entire adult life until 9/11. And then it became something that
Very
I
serious.
became active about. I felt like I had just seen enough. There was enough. If there was anything that I was going to try to do in my life, like a sense of purpose or something I felt important or passionate about, that I felt affected everything. I thought the problem of religion had very deep roots out into the whole world, and it was the cause of a lot of problems. So I felt like it was the one thing that I could throw myself into that could possibly have some tangible effect.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because some people come into it in a different way. When I say that, I'm saying coming out of the closet, so to speak.
There was no closet for me ever.
And the way that is that
Rarely is for New Yorkers.
Right.
True.
The way that is through a number of things. Some is through science, and some is through a traumatic act, something that happened, whether it's not with a large things such as what happened with the 9/11, but maybe with a family member who passed away, who was for some reason was suffering and was not accepting it. Everybody has their own.
Yeah, my family dealt with all of those things. They do. But my family in particular, like I think many, educated New York families for the most part. I mean, my father was a college graduate, my mother was not. But, as an educated, fairly sophisticated group of people here in New York City and its environs, you don't encounter a lot of in-your-face religion to begin with. So there was never really any struggle away from religion. For me, it was a very easy sort of shift going from this is all kind of ridiculous and I don't take it seriously. But now
That's
it's
a New
a big
Yorker,
problem.
see? That's a New Yorker compared to one from Kansas
But now it's a
City.
big now it became really like an
Or the Deep
unignorable.
South.
Yes,
It became an unignorable problem at that point.
Did you feel you had to do something and contribute something to be involved?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's why I got involved with, New York City Atheists, and I'm currently the New York regional director for American Atheists.
Could you tell us a little about what you're doing as the regional director?
Yeah, well, basically, the job in New York is pretty easy for this reason. There are not a lot of issues that we have to fight against in New York. So basically, what I do is I contribute a lot of my time to a fair amount to New York City Atheists and holding meetups. So we have topical discussions about things related to the movement. I'm involved with the Godless Revival, which is an atheist variety show.
Tell us about that.
So, we've been doing it for about a year. We do it once a month on Sunday, and it was an offshoot of Sunday Assembly, which my co-founders and myself, Don Albert and Lee Moore, we were all involved with Sunday Assembly back in June of 2013.
Till they didn't want the name atheist mentioned.
Until 4 months after we got involved with them, 4 months after we had done 4 successful shows on Sundays with a live band and speakers and comedians and all. The powers that be, Sanderson Jones over in England, kept kind of moving the goalposts on us. And, it was a young endeavor for him as well. So I think they were also kind of feeling out what they were going to do. And here in New York City, we advocated strongly to be sort of an assertive, proud atheist voice.
Right.
And little by little, he didn't want us to talk about atheism at all. At first they didn't want us to have atheist speakers come and talk, which I thought was a bit odd. And then they didn't really want us to even court and a secular audience. They wanted us to go after more of the nuns and people who were maybe on the fence of religion. And it's a very hard market to try to find here in New York. So we had no luck, really, in what attempts we made. And then finally, Sanderson did not want us to talk about use the word atheism or discuss atheism at all. Right. You could only, you couldn't say anything negative about religion, and you basically had to.
Grief.
So it became like this, happy fest of nothingness that, none of us could sink our teeth into any longer. So we split off and started the Godless Revival and been doing it successfully for a year.
And it's been growing.
Not as much, not as fast as we'd like, but we get a consistently good audience. We have a core of people who like to come, and we always get some new people.
Could you give the address and location where that is?
Yeah, we do it in sure. We do it on Sundays, usually the last Sunday of every month, and we do it in a place called Connolly's Pub, which is in Midtown. It's on 45th Street and right off Broadway, and it's at 1:00 in the afternoon, last Sunday of every month.
Sounds good.
Right.
And
GodlessRevival.com or Facebook, Godless Revival Facebook.
You have a band or a guitar player?
Yeah, we have a house band, Don Albert, who is a very close friend of mine, a guy, as a matter of fact, that I met through the New York City Atheists. He is a former Jehovah's Witness. He spent 20 years as a Jehovah's Witness, much of it as an elder. You guys know Don.
Yeah. Yes, we do.
He got out of that whole bag probably about 7 or 8 years ago, roughly around 6 or 7 years ago, around the time we met. And he's aside from being an ex-Jehovah's Witness, he's a supremely talented musician.
He is.
So, So he is the musical director, and so he put together the band, and they perform, a few popular rock songs every month, and it's fun.
Well, I just want to mention something. We interviewed him, and it was a very good interview. So if you want to check history or check when he's on, you might find it quite very interesting to look for that and find out, because the interview was very effective. It was a very good interview.
And the third member is Lee Moore, who we also interviewed.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right. Another good person on that.
Yes.
Right.
Do you have any questions that you want to mention, Tim?
I'd like him to go a little more in detail of what the objective is of the Godless Revival.
The objective is basically we just really wanted to do a fun show. It's really pretty simple. We wanted to be able to talk about whatever, atheism or religion-related issues, grabbed our fancy every month, whatever we thought was important or interesting or hot, and be able to discuss it.
Which you couldn't do under the auspices of the
Sunday Assembly. No, we could not. Yeah, our hands were clearly tied, and it's a good thing, because what they were trying to do and what we are trying to do are two vastly different things. I think for the most part, a lot of people would consider, even Sunday Assembly itself started out calling itself an atheist church, an atheist congregation. They used that terminology openly, and we decidedly did not want to be involved in anything that was even remotely like church or a church of any type.
Right.
So this is why the idea of a variety show appealed to us, because the format of what they were doing in the first place sort of lent itself to that, because they had. It was Sanderson's idea to have live music where the audience would sing along. We don't really do sing-alongs. People can if they want, but it's more of a performance by the band. But he used music, and he himself is a stand-up comedian in some way in his life, and has been. So it just seemed natural to do a show that was sort of lively and entertaining, but informative, and had a party with a brain. That's how we would refer to it for a while. It was party with a brain. So that's what we wanted to do. So the goal of it was really just to be able to hopefully spread, the notion of atheism and make it more palatable to people, but via this a medium of variety, entertainment.
Well, let me ask you this: what kind of feedback have you been getting? Has it all been positive? Has it any negative things on that?
No, it's been vastly positive. But I think we're kind of like playing to our own audience. We're like sort of preaching to our own choir, to use the pun. So we don't expect anything less than people enjoy it. We sort of give them what they want in a way. We talk about issues that they're familiar with, or maybe not, but we feel are important. And we do a couple of regular sort of routines, I guess.
Okay.
Lee Moore debaptizes people, which is kind of
Yes.
a fun concept. You get a free shot of tequila if you do it. And
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any get-togethers where you may go on a trip to someplace or demonstrate if necessary, or for those
through the Godless
examples?
Revival?
Well, you could be. Have you thought about doing anything like that? Where, for example, I don't mean the starving kids in Africa, but I mean certain things that in the United States that certainly could be improved on that you might want to participate
Sure.
with, whether politically or not.
Well, that was something that Sunday Assembly was endeavoring to do, was to be involved more in the community and do some charitable work, which I thought was a terrific idea, and I was more than willing to help and be part of it at the time. But I don't know. I think circumstances have sort of dictated, like even though it's only a once a month show, it's a lot more of one's time than you might imagine. Booking the show, getting ready for it, making sure the venue, and setting up all the speakers and the comedians and such. So the idea of trying to add on at this point and do something charitable through Godless Revival is probably not going to happen. But I feel that I don't get paid for any of this through New York City Atheists or with American Atheists or Godless Revival.
But you're filling a void. with people meeting
Exactly.
their lives.
I feel like, I'm providing as much as I sort of can of my own personal time to do this. So that's that's the charity I'm giving.
Through entertainment.
Just in general. Like
Is
that.
this occurring in any other cities? Or?
Godless Revival?
Yeah.
We had inquiries in several places. One in Australia, someone in Atlanta wanted to do one, somewhere else in the South, I think in the Carolinas somewhere. So we had three or four people inquire because it is totally open source. I should say that. If people want to start their own Godless Revival, they can do it. We're not interested in trying. Yeah, right. We just want the thing to just take off and happen. And we, like I said, we got some early inquiries and people who are interested, but it takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
And you have to have the personnel
Dedication.
to do it. You have to have a few people who can be a band, and you have to be able to garner the not only the audience but the speakers and the performers that you would have. So it's a bit of a task. People are could be up to it. It's not that much. 2 or 3 people with the right amount of energy and passion to do it could easily pull it off.
It's a loving task.
Yeah, it's a labor of love.
You got it. Very
For
good.
sure. Like all of the whole atheist thing.
Anything you want to mention?
You also host our meetups, discussion meetups. Tell us about that and some of the subjects you've covered.
Sure. Well, I've been doing that for a long time, probably since like 2006 or 7, something like that. And basically it's whatever's current in atheism. We try to stay topical. We've discussed all things from, like the Pope's visits, and we protested the Pope a long time ago too. That was one of the first things that I actually did as an active member of New York City Atheists. But whether or not the atheist community is inclusive enough with the LGBT community and minorities, and what we should do, where we should stand on separation of church and state, how aggressively atheists should pursue lawsuits, or how what can we do?
or whatever.
Right. Also, like a recurring theme in a way too, a topic that we've discussed more than once is what atheists can do to improve their public image.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the problems that I've seen in this country. I mean, I don't experience it personally much at all, if ever, here in New York City.
Yeah.
But I know that it happens around the country, that people don't have a great view of atheists for the most part. Some people don't. Some people think that we don't have a moral compass, and that because we don't believe in God, we're decadent heathens who will just, do anything without, a sense of conscience. And that's just not true. I think that's been, the driving thing behind atheism for me anyway has always been the ability to be a good and moral person without the Bible.
Well, that's scary that you need the Bible. And without it, then you'd all be running around murdering and raping and everything like
if
that.
everybody ever read the Bible and the misogynistic things that go on in the Bible and slavery and everything else, they realize where's the moral value?
Yeah,
yes.
I think this is definitely a two-sided coin, though. I mean, as much as I realize that the Bible is nothing but mostly a lot of malarkey, as a code for living, as a way to sort of codify human behavior, I think it served a necessary purpose at a certain point. Before we knew anything about science and the way the world works, I think that trying to, like I said, codify a way of living, was not a terrible idea. Some of the things are good, like the golden rule.
We've outgrown it.
Exactly.
It was to civilize a group of nomads, veteran-type people of the Neolithic Age and Bronze Age.
Right. And it had some, very worthwhile things in it, and it had a lot of really awful
Yes, right. Very awful.
things
because it told stories, and some were good and some were unbelievably not good.
Yes.
And some were just clear unbelievable,
Yes.
like most of them. Which is, that's you have to take that whole book with that kind of big rock of
And of course,
salt.
the sorry thing is that so many people still believe in those fairy tales and things these days.
Yeah, well, I think it's changing though, and I think that's this is another thing we've talked about is the religious landscape in America. We've talked a lot about that, and it basically it comes down to this. I think very simply is that the internet is here.
Yes,
it's not going away.
That's right.
Information is power. Effective. Knowledge is power.
Yes.
It's all about education. So
and the
more
younger
people
generation,
know, right? Exactly.
And they see it. They see the debates. They see everything like that.
Right. That's where the hope is in all of this. Really,
Yes.
I agree.
Young people will, the nuns. We all know that, basically, 1 in 5 adults. Does not affiliate himself with a church.
The nuns.
But when you get to the age group of 30 and under, that number becomes 1 in 3. Yeah. So it's now clearly all of these people who we call nuns are not. We can't all count them as atheists in our camp, but they're not on the side of organized religion. They're not fundamentalists.
They're not
by any
fundamentalists,
sense of the word. Right. So I think that there's that's the hope that I hold out. I don't think the change is going to come quite as rapidly as I would like, but it's happening, and it's a tide that can't be stemmed. That's the best part. Like how quickly it happens.
Well, barring the apocalypse or something.
Yeah, well, I'm not counting on that one. Right.
Do you have any siblings, any relatives that know what you're doing?
Oh yeah, my whole family knows.
How do they feel about it?
I'm very close to my whole family. I have a very large family, and I've, like I said, 3 brothers, and they're all married, and they all have kids. So, I have 8 nieces and nephews at this point.
So,
and,
do they go to church and things?
None of them. Not a single one. Not a single one. And I'm proud of them for that. And it's great. And they never really were religious either. I mean, they think what I do is a little bit over the top sometimes. They don't think it's very necessary, or they don't see any urgency in it. And in a way, I don't blame them, because they're also New Yorkers, and they're people who live right around here who don't face any of these problems, So to them, it's like, well, what's Michael
Except
doing?
what happened in 9/11.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Okay,
But, none of them turned to activism as a result, but I had the, I guess the good fortune.
Right. Well, I can see that. I can see a lot of police firemen who lost their lives.
Yeah.
People who lost their lives, innocent people who were in the buildings there, and they were not necessarily Catholics or whatnot. They had other religions in there, and that's one of the reasons
even
why
Muslims
we said
died.
That's right. Where you have to any kind of service that has to be universal, ecumenical. You can't be just one particular thing or just one belief in one Christian.
And I think hopefully now, it took a horrible event like that, but maybe I think that's happening. I mean, there certainly is somewhat of a push in the atheist movement, the secular movement in general, towards doing more community service oriented work, charity work, and what have you. And there are a few groups doing it, and I think it's really great that they are.
Right. Our organization gives blood,
that's
twice a year.
Right.
There are other things that we do. We are involved with the physicians that participate in taking care
Ebola.
of Ebola and whatnot.
Borders.
Yeah, Doctors Without Borders.
And there are many organizations, not just ours in New York City, but others throughout the country, atheist groups or secular groups that are involved in those type of things. We are not heathens in a bad way.
No.
Heathens in a good way.
Right.
So look at it that way.
Yeah, We Are Atheism is another group that Lee Moore is involved with that also tries to help people after there have been natural disasters or,
And you feel good doing something worthwhile,
Yeah.
I do. And I'm sure you do too.
Yeah, there's a great sense of satisfaction in it when you see, the changes that do take place, or at least that it's not. It could be much worse if we were doing nothing.
Yes.
And I think the idea
We
is
don't wait
at the
for
very
some
least
supernatural being to come in and help.
That's not how we roll.
No.
That's right. Just one last thing. If you could you have any other questions you want to mention?
Involved in that little film work.
Yes, right. We should talk about that.
Tell us about it. Yes.
Right. I mean, one of the it was really great. I directed a film about the pizza industry about 6 or 7 years ago that ended up on the documentary channel and on TV. And so it was really great for me to be able to get to sort of meld my creative life with my life of atheist activism. So I started to make a film at this point, a little while ago, about preachers who are no longer believers, who've lost their faith and become atheist activists. And it was kind of dovetailed from a previous project also that was about the New York City atheists, American atheist lawsuit to get the cross removed. So we've been following, the whole trend of atheism for a few years at this point.
It's becoming quite
very
a
much
thing.
so. We have the Clergy Project,
right?
About that.
And there's a story.
Right, the Clergy Project figures in,
Did you
in our
hear
film,
about? I think his name's Ryan Bell.
Yeah, I know.
Yes,
Right, the
who
guy's
decided to live a life of atheism, and then at the end of a year, he decided there's no God. So maybe
shocker.
Yes.
What took so long to realize? That's a shocker. What took so long?
Yeah.
Okay. Would you just one more time explain the once a month meeting, the rally that you have for?
Sure.
It's the address and telephone number if necessary.
It's a Godless Revival, godlessrevival.com, or if you go to Facebook and Godless Revival, you'll find us. And it's like I said, once a month. It is America's, maybe the world's, as far as we know. America's first and only atheist variety show. And so we have comedians and speakers.
Just going to ask that if we have comedians out there who are listening who would like to be involved with your organization, they should contact you through. Yeah,
find us through Godless Revival. Okay. I'm not going to give the whole world my telephone number right now.
Okay,
they can find us through the Godless Revival,
and it's located at
godlessrevival at gmail.com would work, or you could just, like I said, Google search us or go to Facebook, Godless Revival, and we have a Facebook page that has all the information, and a website, godlessrevival.com.
Thank you.
Sure.
Appreciate that.
You guys. It was a pleasure.
Because I got to tell you the truth, folks. I got to tell you the truth. When it comes to bullshit, big time, major league bullshit, you have to stand in awe of the all-time champion of false promises and exaggerated claims, religion. No contest. No contest. Religion easily has the greatest bullshit story ever told. Think about it. Religion has actually convinced people that there's an invisible man living in the sky who watches everything you do every minute of every day. And the invisible man has a special list of 10 things he does not want you to do. And if you do any of these 10 things, he has a special place full of fire and smoke and burning and torture and anguish where he will send you to live and suffer and burn and choke and scream and cry forever and ever till the end of time. But he loves you. He loves you. He loves you and he needs money. He always needs money. He's all powerful, all perfect, all knowing, and all wise. Somehow, just can't handle money. Religion takes in billions of dollars. They pay no taxes, and they always need a little more. Now, you talk about a good bullshit story.